Hey guys, welcome back to Roll Radio. I have a very special guest today, the co-founder of VaynerMedia and Vaynersports, AJ Vaynerchuk.
Hey Bradley, thanks for having me on.
So amazing to have you here. For those that don't know, AJ is also a role investor and pretty much singularly one of the people that inspired me to just go out and start a podcast. AJ, for those that don't know, I really just want to start with your upbringing, where you came from.
Sure. So I grew up in the state of New Jersey. My parents are immigrants. My older brother, also an immigrant. Gary was I think 3 when they came from the former Soviet Union over to America. My sister was born short after them coming here, and then I was born a few years after that. So grew up in New Jersey, grew up in a small town, but grew up in a household that featured entrepreneurship. My father's an entrepreneur. My older brother's an entrepreneur. And so the dinner table conversation was always centered around business. And that's something that I gravitated to. So grew up in a really good situation. I was very blessed, had a great childhood, a lot of friends and support. And eventually went to school in Boston, met my wife up there. And after school, we came down to New York City, spent a good chunk of time in the city. In that time, started VaynerMedia, as you mentioned, with my brother Gary. That was a wild ride. Did that for the first 7 years of my career. Simultaneous to that, also did quite a bit of investing in early stage tech companies, both as an angel and as part of a fund that Gary and I started with a few partners. And then moved up to the suburbs and took a little bit of time off after leaving my role as COO for VaynerMedia, and landed on the idea of starting Vaynersports. So with Vaynersports, we represent athletes, both on and off the field. And so when I say on the field, I mean their contracts with, the New York Giants if they're a football player, their contract with the Arizona Diamondbacks if they're a baseball player, and then for our fighters, we negotiate with the leagues, UFC, Bellator, PFL, etc. Won championship, and then we also have a gamer as a client, Kyle Giersdorf Bugga. And so we work with him to really focus on his marketing initiatives. And that's the other piece when I say off the field or outside the octagon or beyond the console. We're doing the branding, the PR, the endorsements, things of that nature. So yeah, that's what I got going on. And I've got 3 kids under 3.5. So these last few years have been quite crazy, and the pandemic has been crazy. And but we're doing well. We're making it work.
It's incredible. I didn't know you guys were getting into fighting and gaming as well. I guess it's definitely inevitable. I want to freeze frame on like 06, 07, AJ and Gary, and just like things that were going on there. Talk to me about, the beginnings of Wine Library and really just the importance of personal branding for both you and your mother. Like, how important was that to you in those days? I believe that was pre-YouTube. You guys were sort of doing video blogs, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it was like, I won't say it was pre-YouTube, but it was basically inspired and started by YouTube. I'll give that credit to my brother. He saw YouTube early. He saw the potential in YouTube. And so 06, 07, I'm 19, 20 at that time. So I'm in college. Gary's 11 years older than I am. So he's fully into his career. He's already very successful as an entrepreneur. And so I guess for me, I kind of had a front row seat to the show, where I was very lucky in the sense that Gary was very inclusive. I think he enjoyed, being a mentor and teaching. And, I think something that I was really lucky to have that I think made it easier to include me was that, and the skill is honestly less relevant today, but it was helpful in those, high school years and college years, is I was just very naturally good with numbers. And the business that my family was in was retail, and that's a numbers driven business. And so I think that just my inclination for numbers and how much I looked up to my brother, and how much I wanted to be an entrepreneur, when I was in college, whenever I was home for the summer or breaks or anything like that, I had the advantage of, I would show up to the store and shadow my brother. And, it was a family business, right? Like my father's right hand is my brother's best friend from high school, who I had known since I was like 5. And so, I kind of had a very good situation to jump into. And then the other thing too, I guess I'll give myself a little bit of credit. I was very comfortable sacrificing the short-term fun and aspects of college, which, I look back a little bit with regret. I could have had maybe a little bit more fun. But for example, I never went on a proper spring break. I actually went every single year. My spring break lined up with South by Southwest Interactive. And so while my friends were going to Cabo and Cancun and Miami and whatever, I was in Austin, Texas. And it was the early days of South by Southwest Interactive. And I was hanging out, I didn't know it at the time, but future billionaire inventors of unbelievable ideas and companies. And so, that was another aspect of what '06 and '07 looked like for me.
Incredible. And then how did you guys really parlay, something like Wine Library and, the things that were going on there into, really one of the most successful creative agencies we've really seen with VaynerMedia? How does that happen?
I think it stems from the fact that we saw where society was going, and we knew we were ahead of the curve, but we didn't realize how ahead of the curve that we were. And I think it was just being so far ahead, seeing how much platforms like Twitter and Facebook and what eventually became Instagram and Snapchat and others, how important they were for brands. And the dichotomy between how important those brands would be to their business and how little they knew about them and how little the rest of our competition cared about them ended up being a big reason for our success. When we started in 2009, every big agency that we were competing with looked at social media and the budgets surrounding social media as either an afterthought. They thought social media was a fad. They were too old that they didn't care to, old dog didn't want to learn a new trick. And so we just made a big bet that social was going to matter. And on top of that, and again, this is to my brother's credit, my brother also did a great job. And going to South by Southwest Interactive, we knew a lot of the platforms. We knew a lot of the senior executives at those platforms, and we ended up becoming the perfect matchmaker because, it sounds silly today, but back in '09, like Twitter and Facebook, they were finding their way with working with brands. And we sat in the middle. We were like, hey, C-suite executive at Twitter and Facebook meet C-suite executive at Campbell's, the NHL, the New York Jets, General Electric, Pepsi, et cetera. And we were the perfect matchmaker between those two sides. And that was a big deal for us in the early going.
Sure. And was there any apprehension there? I think both of you guys didn't really like have an agency sort of, on your resume beforehand. You guys just kind of dove in. What was that like?
Yeah, I would tell you that the original plan was not to build 1,000+ person agency. What we thought we were going to do was build a small, nimble ninja unit of maybe like 25 to 30, and that we would then go out and use that unit and drum up businesses. And so my brother did it to an extent. I think a good example of that is Empathy Wines. That's a direct consumer wine brand that Gary started from scratch, raised some funding, plucked a few staffers from the Vayner ecosystem that we trusted and knew were capable, and built a big business out of it. So I think if you asked us back in '09 what it was going to look like, it would look more like that, a smaller, more nimble agency and multiple businesses being spun up, almost like a studio model, I think, or an incubator. But honestly, the opportunity was just so big and we were good at it. And we just decided, you know what, we can do both. Why don't we just keep building?
Yeah, you guys definitely became legends in the past, 10 years. Like, a lot of entrepreneurs have just grown up watching you guys, and me in particular as well. And I just want to kind of stress, I guess, a lot of things we learned from you guys are just the importance of like building a personal brand early on, and just how to move forward. What are some strategies you would advise like young entrepreneurs, or just sort of people starting businesses or having ideas, developing personal brands in today in 2021?
Yeah, I think there's obviously a stark contrast between the personal brand my brother built and the one that I built. I think his is that of a more public facing figure. Mine is more of a behind the scenes type figure. I'm obviously lesser known to a mass audience, but have a deep, extensive network in the industries that I care about and operate within. I think a good example, if you just take the two of us, probably the most important thing is to be authentic. I think being someone that you're not is not sustainable. I think it's exhausting. I think it'll create stress. It just won't be worth it in the end. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is to really kind of self-analyze who you are and what you want. And you have to understand that not everybody needs to have millions of followers. Not everybody needs to have a certain type of personality. That's something that we stress quite a bit because, on the sports side, we represent, 80 professional athletes, and we make it clear to those guys and gals that you don't have to replicate what my brother did. And I think a lot of them almost feel a little bit of a pressure that because they're represented by Vaynersports and they have this figurehead in front of them that they need to be that. But I'm always assuring them, listen, like, that's my brother, that's my blood, and I'm not that, and I don't want to be that. And so I think just being authentic and then being strategic. I think understanding, I would say probably the single best piece of advice for anybody trying to build a personal brand is to increase the odds of success by being fast movers with conviction. So what I mean by that is right now, and even right now it's a little bit later, but like if I had to start a personal brand right now, I'd probably go all in on Clubhouse because that's just where the heat is. And that's where people are constantly seeking new information, new people, TikTok, maybe. One of our clients on the football side, he and his wife, they started a couples account on TikTok over the summer back in like July. They're over 1.5 million followers on TikTok. They wouldn't have been able to accomplish that on YouTube and Instagram. I know they wouldn't have. And so I think staying sharp and kind of skating to where the puck is important when it comes to personal brand. My brother really capitalized on Twitter. If you look at it, Twitter is what was enabled him to then go build Instagram, then go build other things. And so, it's incredible what one big platform, and then you have to have the skill and the ability to transfer that audience.
Incredible. Yeah. So just fast forwarding a bit, in 2016, you kind of left as a COO of VaynerMedia and, went ahead and started a sports agency with Vaynersports, as you said, which, now represents over 80 clients. What was that process like for you? Was that planned? Was that something, else that just came about?
It was a mix. Actually, something that was important to me when I left VaynerMedia was I didn't want to have a plan for what was next. I'm somebody that was the type to always have that plan. I knew I got in early admissions to Boston University, and I knew for the most of my entire senior year of high school where I was going to college. We started VaynerMedia like 6 weeks before I graduated college. So even before I finished college, I'd already started my career in business. And so I kind of said, you know what, you owe it to yourself to actually operate in like a space where you don't need to know what's next. You don't need to have a plan. You can kind of take a breath and figure it out. And so I left, I took some time off, but even like the leaving was a plan. I told Gary over a year before I left that I was going to leave. And we mapped out a transition because I wanted to do right by him. I didn't want to leave him high and dry. And so, we hired my replacement. I trained some other people, made sure I probably could have left 3 months earlier than I did, but I kind of just hung around and made sure everything was smooth. And we almost kind of test drove me not being in the mix while I was still there, try to find the cracks and the holes. So yeah, I took some time off, and what I ended up doing was, it was awesome. I lined it up. It was during summertime when I left. I left May 1st, played a ton of golf, walked my dog, hung out with my wife. I didn't have kids at this point. We rented a summer house in Martha's Vineyard, just chilled, like cooked every day, was in great shape, eating healthy. It was awesome. But after like 6-7 weeks, I was kind of like, all right, like, I wonder what my portfolio companies are up to, right? So I was kind of like checking in with investments. And one of the companies in particular was a boutique sports agency representing football players. And if you look at it, the economics of my investment, it was actually like the least financially driven investment that I had. Sports agencies don't have massive multiples, and, it was a small agency that we invested in. But it was the one I was most interested in. It was the one that I was checking in on the most. It was the one that was most fun to me. And so after a couple of months of just checking in a bunch with those guys, I was kind of like, you know what? I think this is probably what I want to do next. And I kind of gradually got myself in there and convinced myself this is what I wanted my career to be. And we went ahead and actually bought a majority interest in their company, rebranded to Vaynersports, football only for the first few years. And like I said, recently branched out into fighting, baseball, and gaming.
Incredible. Yeah. Earlier on, you said, really about the importance of sort of representing clients both on the field and off the field, or, outside of the console as well, outside of the ring. And a lot of people on the outside, they kind of view Vaynersports as, really sort of this full service sports agency as well. Can you break down a bit, what that means? What's your relationship like with your clients, and how do you think it's different from other agencies out there?
Yeah, I think the easiest way I would describe it is that we literally do everything for the client outside of anything that directly correlates to their finances. And what I mean by that is we're not financial advisors, we're not tax accountants. We think that should be church and state, but we do collaborate. For example, literally right after we hang up, I have a call with one of my clients and their financial advisor, because of the success that Gary and I have had as venture capitalists. I have a lot of clients saying, hey, like, what deals are you seeing? I'm thinking about putting 25K to work on some risky investments. And my thing always is like, cool, I'm happy to tell you what I know, but you need to know I'm not a professional. And I would only really want to do this in tandem with your financial advisor, because I want them to know the conversations that we're having, because I have no interest in steering you into something that doesn't fit within your kind of financial plan. But as far as like everything else that we do, the foundation of it is obviously the contracts that I've described. Every agency does that. A lot of other agencies also provide the marketing side. I think we're superior in that regard in terms of the opportunities that we bring to the table from a marketing perspective for our clients. And then the third variable that really nobody is doing, and I really take a lot of pride in it, is that layer of business acumen and just guiding. So for example, I would say on a daily basis, I have at least one phone call with one client at least that centers around venture capital, public stocks, cannabis, real estate, SPACs. Like, this is what I'm having conversations about. And shoot, when like the whole meme stock thing hit with GameStop and AMC and all that, I was getting 10 times the calls. We are really bringing a ton of value, I think, in terms of bringing a general business acumen and opening up our network and making introductions. Whether it's having a call with a real estate lawyer, helping them understand how to purchase a rental property for Airbnb, or having a call with a patent attorney to help them understand if this invention they have in mind is patentable. We're doing all that type of work all the time, and I think that's a really differentiated added value.
Yeah, for sure. I remember one time you had me sit down and like give a crypto talk to like some of the Green Bay Packers and some other Vayner clients, and I was a little nervous at first, but then when I sat down, I just realized everyone was really an extension of you, and there was just such a deep relationship there. You really knew their families and like what was going on day to day. It was very much like a Jerry Maguire sort of thing. It's just kind of awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's full service. And I actually had a call yesterday with the father of a prospective client that I think we're close to making a member of the family. And the father was telling me, he's like, hey, like, one thing that I was talking to my son about the prospective client is like, something that's important to us is like, it's been a family affair around his work. His little brother helps out, his little sister helps out with like social media and merchandise. And obviously the dad's involved, helping him kind of navigate. The dad's a super sharp, impressive dude. And they're like, my son did mention a little bit of a concern, like, is Vayner so helpful and has so many resources that like you're just going to kind of box out the family portion? And I was telling the father, I'm like, listen, this is a family business in itself. Like, it was started by two brothers, right? And so we take that seriously. And then the other thing that I said is like, listen, at the end of the day, our clients are human beings. And that's something that I really enjoyed about my switch. While at VaynerMedia, the end client at the end of the day is a corporation. And our job is to help that corporation, increase their stock price and things of that nature. But when it comes to an athlete, our end job is to make that athlete's life better in any way that we can. And so if that means including the family more so, that's part of the job. And then frankly, the other piece too that I like is when family's involved, I feel like more can get done. Because if there's no family involved, and that's often the case, if I need to get something done for a client, I have to go directly to the client, and the client's the only one that can help me move the ball forward. But if their father, their fiance, their girlfriend, their wife, their husband, their brother are involved, I have another touch point to help move things forward. So I actually welcome the family dynamic.
It's incredible. Yeah, I've seen that relationship up close with sort of a few clients there, like a Derek Morgan or sort of Josh Jackson. I was curious if you could talk about your relationship with some clients, be it them or
yeah, I'll just use them as an example. Like, with Derek, a great example is his wife is super talented. She is an incredible vegan chef, and also is just a very charismatic individual. And so I take a lot of pride in, spending the time with her a few years ago. I'm looking it up now. You know, she's up to 140,000 followers on Instagram. I remember creating her Instagram account and making her first post myself, and like setting her up and holding her hand and helping her find a freelance photographer to take a picture of her food and giving her social media strategies. We created her website, we created her logo. And so, and then the beautiful part is like, and then she ran, right? Like we kind of, in terms of like building a house, I went over there and I said, hey, here's the blueprint, and I'm going to pour the cement for the foundation, and we're going to smooth it out. And here's your foundation, and here's your blueprint. Now you go buy the wood, and now you build it. And to her credit, she went and built a mansion. And so that's a great example. With Josh is, with the family side, I've developed a really good relationship with his brother. The lead agent on the business and myself, we have a good relationship with the mom. And so that's more just being there. I think Josh knows that we're there for him. Get to see the family from time to time, whether it's, one thing I will say is this year's been a little bit difficult from a COVID perspective, because some of the best opportunity for us to spend time with the families is at a game, before the game, after the game. So I very much missed that this year, and hope to get that back in the future. But yeah, I mean, the client relationships and with their families, like I very much follow the client's lead. It's up to them, how little or how not involved we are with the family side of things.
For sure. Yeah. And then just about like the media and creative, strategy side of Vaynersports. How do you sort of execute on that? Are there packages? Is it, unique for every client? How does that work?
It's unique for every client. It kind of goes back to what I said before about a personal brand and my brother. We're not forcing everybody to be my brother. We're not telling everybody that you have to do X, Y, or Z. The clients that are more inclined to create content, we're spending more time helping them on that stuff. And the clients that are not, we're spending less time on that. But it's a custom strategy through and through. And it just really, it's like unique to every individual. That's for sure.
Nice. I'm starting to get a few professional athletes in my network as well. And was just curious if anyone's listening from that world, like how do you get signed with Vaynersports? What's the process? You guys scouting?
Yeah. I mean, we're open-minded. I think, we try to stay disciplined to the sport that we're in. So, the easiest way to get signed is to be a gamer, a football player, a baseball player, or an MMA fighter. Not to say that if you're not one of those things, we wouldn't entertain it, but the leap and the infrastructure to start a new sport is something that we take seriously and requires a lift. And then, the easiest way is just to hit me up directly. I mean, I'm pretty easy to find online. It's just AJV on Instagram, AJV on Twitter. I promise you, if any athlete shoots me a DM on one of those two platforms, I'll get back to them.
For sure. Awesome. Yeah. I want to jump into some crypto stuff for a bit.
Let's do it.
So, yeah. I think we're pretty lucky to kind of, be a bet for you and your brother in the crypto space alongside Coinbase. We've recently seen this just huge surge in interest in people dealing with products like Roll, interested in exploring the idea of issuing a currency, what that means for their followers and their fans, how it's traded. This is a category that you guys kind of called as far back as 2018. And I just want to make sure people are aware of that, so as entrepreneurs, entertainers, and creators kind of come to us, you guys were one of the first people to back us and gave us a lot of strategies and ideas. Mm-hmm. So Roll recently reached $500 million in market value for creators. The numbers are insane now. There's $30 million traded every month in what we call social money, the creator's own currency. As this moves forward, what do you think is going to happen next in this category? How do you think having an athlete or a talent have their own currency changes their relationship with their fans or in general the internet?
Yeah, I think one particular thing that I loved about the blockchain in general when it came to the notion of a currency for an individual, or even a little outside of this realm, but I think it's analogous, is all the buzz around NFTs in terms of things like NBA Top Shot, and what Crypto Kitties was in the past. Something that I really liked is just that I found the blockchain to be an incredible platform to truly track that information in terms of, I guess, tracking engagement, tracking ownership, quantifying the volume or the population of something, right? Like, so for example, if you're not using the blockchain, if you're not using Roll, if you're not using NBA Top Shot, in lieu of trading cards, there's so much information that is unknown. And I think the fact that the blockchain kind of centralizes all that info, makes it quick, makes it instantaneous, brings it all together, is just an incredible strength to make the engagement and the communication stronger. I think that's the thing that I like about it the most. It's just that, the pipes are better connected. I think the centralization is so important. When you think about how individuals, whether it's my brother or athletes or whatever, have engaged with their audiences, it's very sporadic. It's very all over the place. And it's kind of like catching a falling knife to try to bring it all together. And so I think probably why Gary and I gravitated to what you have going on is we've always had a desire to have a better grasp and a better control of the data of the engagement and of the fans. And so I think that's where it's going. I think more and more are going to see the value in it. They're going to see the value that the pipes have, and kind of centralizing it all together. And I'm very bullish on where it's going. It's heading in the right. I think the biggest hurdle is being hopped. I think the thing that was always going to be the biggest hurdle for a platform like yours or any of these others is just people wrapping their head around the digital nature of something new. But once you clear that hurdle and they see how much better it is, it's going to be great. That's how I see it.
Incredible. Yeah, we have a lot of friends in this space. Definitely count the founders of CryptoKitties and NBA Top Shot there as well. It's a whole different standard, right? The idea of like having this collectible asset,
yes,
like having a currency. But what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on this concept of like digitally collecting a moment in a game or
yeah,
an asset?
So I agree. It's very different, but I think where I was going and where I am is that I think they both benefit from the same concept of a greater control of the information and the removal of friction for transactions. And so what I mean by that is let's look at NBA Top Shot, the one that I'm most familiar with. Full disclosure, I have a decent chunk of invested into moments on NBA Top Shot, and I'm very bullish on its future. For example, if you look at a Luka Doncic rookie card, right? There is this rookie card, and there are things that can help you get a grasp for the value of that rookie card. But let's look at the entirety of the ecosystem. I pull that rookie card out of a pack, right? My next step to optimize value is to very carefully take that physical asset and put it into a protective sleeve and then into a protective case. I then must ship it to a grading company manually. And that, that's PSA, Beckett, SGC, et cetera, right? I pick one of these grading companies. PSA is kind of the leader. I send it to them. And at the rate it's going now, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, I get it back. So now it's been tons of manual work. And I just shipped the card out today myself. It's a pain in the butt. Let's be honest. Like, I have to get an envelope and I have to rip the tape, I have to put a shipping label out. I have to grab the tape, take it to the post office, put it in the mailbox. It's manual work and it's a waste of time. Then I get the card back. And now on that card, all right, I'm gonna go to eBay, post it on eBay, I could sell it on eBay, pay eBay a bunch of fees. I have to then ship it out again. Buyer has to get it back. I have to make sure the buyer gets it. There's a chance that the card is actually fake if I'm a crook. Like, I could have created a reprint and it could be fake. People are scamming PSA slabs. Like, there's so much fraud. At the end of the day, we have the only people that know how many of these Luka cards were printed are the company that printed them, right? Like, we don't know how many there are. We know how many PSA 10s there are. We know how many PSA 9s there are, but we don't know how many PSA 10s are waiting in the wings, right? We don't know. So I just think with this stuff, like, when I grab a pack off Top Shot, first of all, it fills an instant desire. If I'm like, man, I want to open up a pack of cards, I can literally go on a website and open a pack of cards instead of going on eBay and buying, or going on to a web e-commerce company and buying, or driving 20 minutes to the card store. I can literally just pick up my phone and my laptop and open up a pack. When I open up that card, everybody's card is in the same condition. There's no like, oh, you ding that corner or whatever. Everybody's card's in the same condition. It tells me there's a serial number. This is number 612 out of 7,500. So I know the supply. And if I want to sell that card, I can list it for trade. And if somebody wants to buy it, they can instantly own it. I just think the removal of friction, the instant gratification, the standards, the instant nature of transactions, there's so many benefits to an NFT versus the physical product.
Incredible.
That's how I see
it. Definitely things we're sort of exploring tangentially. Something that's happening in the role world is some agencies are reaching out, labels, et cetera, kind of like the minds behind the talent. And they're starting to think of ways that their talent kind of can develop a currency and an ecosystem and like what that means for their audience. Do you personally see a world where, sort of agencies are, signing athletes or talent, and instead of just having a social strategy, they actually have a crypto or blockchain strategy?
Yeah, I think that's coming. That's something that's on my mind. It's part of why we wanted to invest. I think that's another piece of it, right? Like, I think that's going to happen now. Now, where it's going to get tricky is that you're talking about something very innovative right now, right? And very ahead of the curve. And I think the vast majority of agents and management are going to fall behind. And there's going to be a small subset, the ones that are reaching out to you, for example. There's going to be a very small percentage that are actually ahead of the curve, but kudos to them. Meritocracy is going to win. They're going to build some great case studies and help some of their clients be very successful. And then they'll probably get other clients looking around me like, wait, I want to be with that company. So yeah, I think it's coming. It's just going to take some time.
For sure. Yeah. Any other way that you think athletes or talent could kind of look at blockchain and crypto as an opportunity?
Well, I know a lot of them are looking at it just in terms of them investing. I must have gotten 20 clients asking me about Doge in the last 2 weeks. So you got that piece. Beyond that, I think beyond that, I guess, obviously with you guys in terms of the currency, and if they had enough juice, this is reserved for only the top 5%, they hypothetically can create their own, digital collectible. That's another piece of it. Instead of selling signed, posters and things like that, they could have digital currency and limited drops and things like that. That'd be the other piece that I can think of. But beyond that, I think there's plenty to tackle right now, right in front of them.
Absolutely, yeah. And just wrapping up, for those that are curious, what's next for you and Vaynersports?
Just continuing to build. I think we're very focused on making sure that our offering is best in class, and so that was always something that I was focused on when we were building VaynerMedia. We grew VaynerMedia from 12 employees to 350 employees in 4 years, and so that 4-year stretch, a big focus of mine was like, okay, I know my brother can go and get us new business. We need to make sure that the work that we're doing stays at the level of our reputation and what we're selling. And so I think that's kind of the mode we're in now. We've added 3 sports last year, and we're adding some really great clients across the now 4 sports. I'm really focused on just delivering at a high level and delivering the value offering that we say.
For sure. And, for those just watching that want to start an agency, how would you do it in 2021?
How would you start an agency in 2021? That's a highly personal question. I think, our approach, my approach is very unconventional. I guess it is one way, go into a different industry, have success, and then take that success and parlay it into an agency. The most common way these agencies get started, I'm not saying this is what they should do, but it's the most common for reference, is go work at another agency, work your way up, do great work, build deep relationships with clients that love you and trust you, and then work within the confines of your contract and leave and bring those clients that believe in you along for the ride and get going from there. That's the most common path. You can take it my way too, but that's pretty damn unique.
Yeah, definitely. And then, somewhat lastly, what moments in your life shaped you the most, if you could name 2?
2 moments that I can name it pretty quickly. Being diagnosed with Crohn's disease at 19, that was just a wake-up call. I think I was somebody that I grew up in a bubble. I grew up in a very safe situation. I was very fortunate in terms of the loving home that I was brought up in, and the economic comfort and security that I was provided growing up. And then when I was 19, I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and it was kind of like a big stark wake up call of like, all right, life can't be on easy mode forever. You're an adult. You have a real situation on your hands. There's something that really hits you at your core is when you're diagnosed with a disease that doesn't have a cure. You know, right now, Crohn's does not have a cure. I've been living with it for 15 years. I probably had it before I was even 19. So, but diagnosed for 15 years. And there's a very humbling aspect to dealing with something that doesn't have a solution, as somebody who's very solution oriented. So that shaped me a lot. That shaped my perspective quite a bit. And then I would say the second thing that shaped me is becoming a father. It's cliche, but you know, having 3 kids now, it's hard to describe how much that has just changed my perspective on things and what your priorities are. And, you know, it certainly helped shape a lot more patience in me as an individual. And yeah, I would say, you know, having kids and being diagnosed with Crohn's are 2 massive things that shaped who I am.
Incredible. Yeah. And lastly, AJ, you know, where can we find you online if we want to follow the story? And
best spots are Twitter and Instagram. It's just 3 letters. It's my initials, AJV. Twitter.com/AJV, Instagram.com/AJV.
Incredible. Well, AJ, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for stopping by Real Radio.
Thanks, Bradley. Appreciate you, my man. Take care.